like to call the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting to order. And first on our agenda, actually not on our agenda, I'd like to introduce and welcome Mark Armando, our newest Planning Commissioner, who was recently appointed by our City Council. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
There'll be your 20-minute speech that you give will be at the end of the meeting, and then there'll be about a 30-minute question and answer period. Okay, perfect.
20-minute speech will be about 2 minutes. I've condensed it.
Okay, so then I think we can look around and see that our roll call, everybody is present today. And with that, I'd like to call on Commissioner Verplank to lead us in the pledge.
Would you all please rise? Join me in Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, public comments. Do we have any comments that are from residents that items not listed on the agenda, Peggy? No? All right. So then we'll move to our presentation item.
Our first presentation item this evening is our code enforcement activity report for the fourth quarter. And this evening I'd like to introduce Daryl Hill. He's our code enforcement supervisor. So welcome, Daryl, and looking forward to your report.
Good evening, Commissioners. During the fourth quarter of our code enforcement group added 105 new cases to the 211 cases carried over from the third quarter of 2015. We closed 87 cases during that same period, and we began the fourth quarter of 2015 with an active caseload of 229 cases. I am prepared to take any questions if you have any at this time.
Any questions from commissioners?
Yes, just want to congratulate you on a major success you had in the last month on one of those enforcement code things. It made the newspaper, and I know it was a lot of hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I really appreciate it.
I continue to be really interested in this area.
Yes, sir.
I had a question, Daryl, if I could ask. The distribution on this, how does it deviate? I didn't go back and look at the last report, but it seems like we've got public nuisance seems to be a little bit higher. Am I off on that? Has that increased from the previous quarter?
Not really. It's the fourth quarter of the year is always a little on the different side. Is people get more involved, become less interested in complaining. So sending a complaint. So, but we still have a heavy concentration in Area 2, as you can see. Less so in Area 1. No, I really don't have a great answer for you. It's just that time of year, and the caseload is a little bit less then.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, and congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And congratulations, Daryl, from all of us, I think. Welcome.
Our next report is Public Works for their quarterly activity report. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Fuentes and members of the Planning Commission. The Public Works quarterly update is included in your meeting package. We have one project currently under construction, and that is the Saddleback Ranch Road Traffic Common Project in Portola Hills. Construction started in July, and it's now scheduled to be completed by the end of this month. The contractor has removed one median and narrowed others so that a bike lane could be installed. The contractor will be slurry sealing the street, and new striping will be installed next week. And there's also some minor landscaping that will be completed in the next 2 weeks. And so that would be it, and that would be the completion of our project. Concludes my update, and we'll be more than happy to answer questions.
Go, Tom.
Those, on the side streets off of Saddleback Ranch Road, they've extended out the curb. Are they planning to do anything about painting those curbs or adding some signage? Because I've noticed when I drive up there at night, some of those are hard to see. And it's like, kind of like we're driving an obstacle course. Are they going to do something to improve that, or what's that situation there?
They're just going to be adding some concrete to fill in the medians to what they call pork chops. And those pork chops are allow the drivers coming in from the side streets to scoot out a little bit more than they used to, and have better sight. As far as those pork chops being more visible than what they are now, I'll have to check to see if there are additional improvements planned for those.
I was up there a week ago, and you drive up there at night, and it's, if you don't know that they're there, they can be a real surprise, and they're not very well lit. You have one little diagonal sign up there. It really doesn't let you know exactly that it's there. You kind of come upon them kind of quickly. So I think if you could look at that, I think that would be very useful.
Okay, will do.
Does anybody else have any questions, concerns? Well, thank you, Angel.
Sure.
So, Gail?
Okay, so we're on to public hearings, and our first hearing this evening is site development permit for a new multi-tenant restaurant building with a drive-through.
Maybe we would do the consent calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll go ahead. I'll move for approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Having motion and second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now, Gail.
Okay, now we will. We'll start our first public hearing is a site development permit for a new multi-tenant restaurant building with a drive-through located on Portola Parkway, and Jennifer Mansour has a report this evening.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. This item is a site development permit and 2 plan sign programs for a new multi-tenant building in Phase 1 of the Foothill Ranch Town Center, which is located on the corner of Portola Parkway and Marketplace. The project includes the demolition of an existing vacant bake building and the construction of a new 4,190 square foot building with an outdoor patio and new trash enclosure. The proposed building architecture features materials, colors, and finishes that are similar to other buildings in the center, and the architecture is compliant with the citywide design guidelines. The proposed building includes a drive-through for one of the tenants, which is proposed to be a Dunkin' Donuts. The drive-through has been designed to accommodate stacking for up to 12 vehicles, and cars in the drive-through will be screened from public view by landscaping proposed around the entire drive-through lane. Although the new building layout will require the elimination of 12 parking stalls at the site and the relocation of a handicap-accessible parking stall, the entire shopping center will still meet the city's parking requirements with the addition of the new building and the outdoor patio area. The project is located in the Commercial Zoning District in the Foothill Ranch Planned Community, which requires a site development permit for the project. The new building and site improvements meet all the commercial development standards and applicable zoning regulations. As I mentioned, this project also includes 2 plan sign programs. The first sign program is an amendment to the existing Foothill Ranch Town Center Phase 1 sign. It includes sign regulations based on building type. However, there are no regulations for the multi-tenant pad building because this will be the first one in this center. The applicant has proposed sign regulations that combine the existing sign program regulations for the multi-tenant and the pad building. The proposed regulations will ensure that signs on the building are appropriate in size and number and are generally uniform in appearance with other signs in the center. The second plan sign program is for the drive-through signage. Overall, staff is supportive of the drive-through because the number of proposed drive-through signs is not excessive. The inclusion of the pre-menu board and the order confirmation screen will facilitate the speed of the drive-through. The signs are well placed to lead customers into the drive-through entrance, and as conditioned, the signage will not be highly visible from the surrounding streets. Accordingly, staff is recommending the Planning Commission approve 3 different resolutions that will approve the site development permit and each of the plan sign programs. The applicant is in the audience tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on the project. Thank you.
Okay. Gail, help me here. Are we going to take comments first or ask questions first?
The commission, if they have questions for staff, can ask them now, and then you can open the comment
thank
portion.
you.
And
I'm missing my cheat sheet, so, and I'm new. We'll muddle through. We'll muddle through. Any questions?
I have a question for staff.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks. Jennifer, page 28, 4 of 14, on the graphic there, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the parking island that's right as the exit of drive-through, and it's circled in red, and you know, and that was probably the first thing that kind of caught my attention. I thought, well, why did we circle that in red? And is there something that we're supposed to be dealing with here? Is that island? I mean, I looked through other things, I didn't see any notation, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means I didn't see it.
I'd like to believe I explained it, but they're basically modifying that parking lot island to accommodate the handicap parking stall.
Okay.
So they're adding it in, and they were able to not relocate the tree, but take out a little bit of the shrubs on there,
Okay.
and still get the handicap parking stall to fit, because it needs to be as close to the entrance as possible.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, so then let's hear from our guests.
Joe Haupt.
So just as a reminder, we'll state our name and our city of residence, and if you go beyond 3 minutes, really bad things happen.
Good evening. My name is Joe Haupt. I'm with the Spectrum Development Group. My city of residence is Ladera Ranch, and we're the applicant on this particular project. We've thoroughly enjoyed the process, working with staff, and the collaboration has been fantastic. We've reviewed all the conditions. We accept all the conditions, understand all of them, and I'm available to answer any questions the Commission has.
Jerry?
I'd just like to say it's about time that old World Savings Bank building went away. And I'm thrilled to see what potentially is lined up to go in there. I recall when Dunkin' Donuts opened their drive-through over in Laguna Hills, it created an interesting flow of traffic around 24-Hour Fitness and with the Board of Realtors for quite some season. So I know we're going to have a lot of traffic here, but I don't think we'll have the same negative impact.
I don't think so either. We're actually the franchisee, and we built Laguna Hills as well and operate that.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Now, this is just a question I had. I know it says Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins. Are the drive-through going to be for ice cream and stuff, or is that as well?
Yes, sir.
I mean,
It's a multi-branded tenant, so it's a Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins operating out of one premises, one drive-through, one menu board. So both product lines are available all the time.
Okay. Have they done this before with the Baskin Robbins? I mean, I always thought you could go in and kind of pick, and it's kind of hard driving with an ice cream cone. So
We will be the second in California.
Just curious.
Yeah, we will be the second in California. It's quite common in Texas and New Mexico, where some of the new things. Dunkin' Brands is very new to California, as Commissioner Verpank pointed out. This will be the second in the whole state of California here.
And walk-in, they still have the walk-in business as well, so you can...
Yes, sir.
Okay, just curious.
I have a question. Is this going to create any kind of traffic hazards wherein we might need to get a new law in the state of California, like driving with a cell phone, driving with an ice cream? I'm just kidding.
Tom, thank you.
What type of tenant are you looking for the second property?
We are in moments away from lease execution with, and unfortunately I can't share the exact name, with a tenant who's a pizza operator, and it's one of the newer breed of fresh, fast pizzas, kind of like the Chipotle of pizzas, where you go and you get dough, and it's all fresh ingredients, and it's fired in a wood oven right there in front of you.
Okay.
So it's not a Pizza Hut or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think That's all our questions. Do we have any other speakers? Okay. So then, let's bring it back up here. Who wants to begin? Tom does.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and approve staff's recommendation for this project.
I'll give a second, excuse me.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. So with that, we will call on Gail Ackerman again.
Okay, we're on to item 5. This is a site development permit for the development of 64 single-family residents at the Parkside Residential Development. And Jennifer also has a report on this item this evening.
This next item tonight is the first site development permit for the new Parkside Residential Community. The Parkside Residential Community is an approximately 30-acre site located at the northwest corner of Rancho Parkway and Portola Parkway, directly across from the city's new sports park. In May of last year, the City Council, on recommendation from the Planning Commission, approved a general plan amendment and zone change to allow residential uses on the property. The Council also approved tentative tract map 17707 for the site and a development agreement for the project. The developer for the site is Toll Brothers, and they have submitted 3 site development permits for 3 different single-family residential products and a separate site development permit for the recreation center at the development. This is the first of the 4 site development permits you'll be seeing, and you will see the other 3 over the next few Planning Commission meetings. This project is a conventional single-family residential neighborhood with 64 units, which is going to be called Arlington at Parkside. The single-family lots for this project were previously subdivided under tentative tract map 17707. The residences will have 3 floor plans with 5 bedrooms. Each residence has a private yard with block walls and a wooden gate. In order to maximize the usable side yard area for the lots, most of the lots include a 5-foot wide use easement along one of those side property lines. There are 4 different architectural styles proposed for each floor plan in this project and 5 different color schemes. Landscaping is proposed in the private parkways along the street and in all common areas. The landscaping will be maintained by the Homeowners Association. All of the residences are designed with a 2-car garage and individual driveways that can accommodate parking for 2 vehicles. In addition, the development has 2 private streets that can accommodate parking on both sides of the street for a total of 55 on-street parking stalls. Overall, the project meets the city's parking requirements with a surplus of 42 spaces. The project also includes a request for a modification to the fence height requirements for 5 different walls throughout the development. The proposed height modifications are to accommodate grade changes throughout the site and provide adequate sound attenuation, privacy, and safety for all the residents. As required by the zoning code, staff has included the required findings for the wall height modifications in the resolution approving the site development permit. Overall, the project, with the additional findings, will be in compliance with the city's zoning code and the Baker Ranch Planned Community regulations. Since you've received your packets, the applicant has proposed 2 revisions to their wall and fence plan, which was left on the dais for you for your review. The revised plans eliminate some of the pilasters on the perimeter walls. They're going to maintain them only on the corners, and increase the height of the rear walls on lots 1 and 2 by approximately 2 feet. These are the walls that face the slope area next to the toll road. Also, staff is recommending 1 additional condition of approval for the project that will make it easier for the developer to switch out different elevations and colors for the homes, as long as the revisions are consistent with the architectural principles that are set out in the Baker Ranch Planned Community. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving the site development permit for this project. At your discretion, you may also want to include in your motion the added condition of approval and the revised wall and fence plan. The applicant is in the audience tonight, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have any questions for Jennifer? Okay, well then let's open the public hearing. We have
Nicknora.
Did you remember about the name and the city and then the 3-minute problem? Okay.
Yep. It'll be under 3 minutes. So I'm Nick Norvillis. I'm currently located in Lake Forest. I'm a senior project manager for Toll Brothers, and I'm going to be working on this project. Overall, we're going to have 195 lots here. We're really excited to be working in Lake Forest again. We've been really successful at Baker Ranch. We're going to have 3 collections of single-family homes out here ranging from 2,500 to 3,500 square feet. It'll be a gated community, again, with a rec center and pool. We hope to be open this fall, and we hope to settle out by the end of 2019. I can take any questions that you guys have at this time.
Any questions? Tom looks like he has one.
I was scrolling through this material. I'm trying to remember. In terms of parking in that particular tract, are you going to require the homeowners association to do something to make sure that people park in their garages and not on the street and things like that?
Right now, we're still working on the HOA docks. We're going to try and maximize them using the garage and their driveway and not the street. That's kind of how we're working on writing the docks right now.
And there's actually a condition of approval on the original tentative tract map that requires that they have inspections, I think, every certain time period to ensure that people are using their garages.
Yeah, I thought that was in there, but I just wanted to be sure.
It was in the original tentative
Yeah,
tract
that's what I
map.
thought. Yeah, I thought I remembered seeing it before.
Yeah, most of our HOA docs say that they need to be able to park the number of cars that the garage is meant for. So it's not going to be used as one unit for storage, one car. It has to be able to have 2 cars in the garage.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate answering my question.
Anybody else?
Now, you said there's going to be a pool and a clubhouse and all that, so I'm looking on the plan, I don't see it on there.
That won't be submitted. That's a separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would
Maybe
be-
follow up. When do you see that coming in at any particular time?
We submitted for our first plan review for that.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for comments back, and that won't be for another 3 weeks, probably. Jennifer?
We're expecting it'll come in April or May to you guys.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have any other questions, Mark? Well, I just wanted to comment that the landscaping that you are putting in across from the sports park looks like it's going to be beautiful, and that was kind of what we were looking for when we approved the project. So it looks like that's going to be exciting to see when it's all mature. And do you have any idea when future projects that will finish out the area, when those are going to be coming to us?
You should see one in March, hopefully, and then the other part of it, the cluster product, in April.
Oh, so you're moving right along.
We're trying to move as fast as we can.
Great, we'll keep you busy.
That's good.
On your proposed single-family residences, the next tract that you're going to do, will those be basically the similar architecture and landscaping as this current tract?
Very similar, slightly larger homes, 55 by 65 is what the lot sizes are going to be, but they're going to be right next to those ones that we're submitting this time.
Okay.
Very similar layout.
What are you thinking about in terms of the single-family clusters?
How do I like them?
Or how do you plan to do that?
It's going to be a carted, like an entryway street, 2 that will load off of the front street, and the other 4 will load off the side. They have driveways as well, but they'll load off of that car path.
Okay.
So it'll be 4 different units.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a comment. I particularly, this is for staff, I particularly like the way in which they presented a photograph and the name of each plant material, and it made it real easy to understand, where in some other plans we have to kind of like guess what it is that plant material is. So that was very convenient. If in fact in the future we could continue to do that, it's very helpful. And then for the applicant, I noticed that in Plan 3 you have a circular stair.
We do.
That's bold.
Yeah, we have one over at Baker Ranch too. It's always a great idea. It's a lot harder to build than it is to design.
Yeah, it's expensive space. I hope you get the benefits from it. I look forward to seeing it.
Awesome.
Okay, do we have anybody else that would like to speak on this one? Well, thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much.
So bring it back up here. Any more questions for Jennifer? Then I'm going to look at Tom again.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing and approve the project as recommended by staff with the modifications and additions as presented.
I'd like to second that.
Any discussion? Let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing the product. Okay, that takes us on to item
6. Item 6 is a use permit for Camp Runnymede Dog Daycare and Boarding Facility, play area, and ancillary retail sales and grooming. And Amanda Loffer has a staff report this evening.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. For you tonight is a use permit to allow a dog daycare and boarding facility with an outdoor play area and ancillary retail sales and grooming services located at 22512 Aspen Street. The proposed facility could accommodate a maximum of 32 dogs and 6 employees at any given time. The grooming services would only be offered to those dogs staying at the facility. The applicant is also proposing to have a 2,500 square foot outdoor play area in a section of the existing parking lot. The play area will be enclosed by the existing 8-foot tall concrete walls on 3 sides and a 6-foot tall wooden fence along the Aspen Street frontage. The outdoor play area is located in an area that is surrounded by adjacent parking lots. As shown in the staff report, the adjacent buildings have minimal openings with the exception of roll-up doors and building entries. The city's noise ordinance protects sensitive receptors, which are defined as schools, churches, and residential areas. The nearest residential property is approximately 700 feet away from the subject site and across Muirlands Boulevard, and a church is located approximately 500 feet east of the subject site down Aspen Street. Based on the distance between the proposed site and these uses, they will not be affected by the potential noise generated from this site. The project meets all requirements of the zoning code and is compliant with the general plan designation. Staff did receive 2 letters of opposition from the president of the Pacesetter Business Properties and 10 letters in favor of the proposed project. The letters that were received before the packet was sent out are included in attachment 4 of the staff report. The letters that were received since then are on the dais for your review. Staff is recommending approval of this use permit and would be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is also here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Amanda at this time? Okay. So let's open the public hearing. Do we have speakers? Ooh, we have a pile.
Ferran Liu.
Again, if you name and your city residence.
My name is Ferran Liu. I live in Rancho Santa Margarita. I'm the franchisee of Camp Runnymede in Orange County area. We are very excited to join this Camp Runnymede business because we love dogs. My husband and I are dog lovers my whole life, and we have been taking care of dogs since I was very little, and I have had dogs for all my life. And since last year, I have been taking care of the dogs from communities and helping their dogs go through days that their owners are not there, and we actually got very favorable reviews from all the customers that we have. So it's a needed service in the area, and we want to bring as much as humanity into the community. So we want to help the dogs and as well as the owners. So we really want this project to succeed. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions of the applicant? Right here.
You said there was a maximum of how many dogs?
32 dogs.
Now, do you have an overnight boarding?
Yes, there will be overnight boarding.
Okay. And is somebody there 24 hours or something?
Yes, we will have staff over there 24 hours.
Okay. Thanks.
I was kind of curious what happens when it rains.
Rain?
When it rains, are all the dogs inside? And
yes.
I'm not talking about the overnighters. I'm talking about, the
Okay, we will have some kind of shelters in the yard area, and we can also bring the dogs back to our facility when it rains. So,
Did I miss those shelters in the?
I mean, like umbrellas.
Yeah, if they're going to have umbrellas, then that's one thing, but there was no proposed shade structures in the outdoor play area. Like permanent shade structures, there was no proposal for that.
Do we need to be concerned about that at this time?
The city doesn't have any requirements that would specify this is necessary, so we would consider that to be a business operational. Consider.
But if they want to put them up, they'd have to come back to us.
If it had a structure that required a building permit, yes, but if they had, an umbrella or something else, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if I can get a clarification here, no more than 6 employees and no more than 32 dogs at any one time, but that would allow you to have up to 30 dogs overnight. Is that what I'm understanding?
We won't have more than 32 dogs at one time.
Period.
At the same time.
Yeah, whether it's overnight or whether it's just during the day.
Right.
Okay. So the facilities that you're proposing here are sufficient if you were to have 32 overnight guests?
Yes, because our guests will most likely just drop off their dogs and then just leave. So we won't take up the parking space very long.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the parking space. I'm more concerned about space for the animals.
Yes, he meant the dogs, not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not humans, but
pretty-
well, actually, some of them.
We're
are
dog friendly
humans.
on this council.
My dog was a human.
Yeah, it's a very big building, so we can definitely accommodate 32 dogs at night.
Okay, so that number is valid both overnight as well as daytime then?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to determine. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question about the gate on the outside play area.
Okay.
What type of security are you going to have there to make sure that somebody can't leave that gate open and a dog escapes or something like that? That was one of my concerns. That
You mean a gate to the yard?
there's a gate to the parking lot.
Oh, to the parking lot.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to keep that locked or what the situation is with that gate, but it looks to me like that's a place where an animal can escape pretty easily if somebody wasn't watching or somebody left the gate open or something like that.
We have the enclosed yard. We will definitely make sure that the dogs won't escape from the yard. From the front door, we will always have employees looking over and watch over the dogs so they won't have the chance to escape, even though we will have double doors inside the facility, so they have to like cross 2 doors in order to get outside, so that's nearly impossible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
One more. Sorry.
This is actually of staff. The building is situated in a very small block, and there's 4 buildings in that block. I assume that notice was given to all the adjacent property owners. Did they respond back at all? There's 3 other adjacent properties.
The adjacent properties, they did not directly respond, but the Pace Setter business properties was the one that gave the letter of opposition.
Okay, I read that. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dennis Quaglia.
Hi, my name is Dennis Quaglia. I am one of the founders of Camp Wenham, the franchisor. Am I allowed to hand you guys something?
Not directly, but this is your city of residence.
What's that? Oh, San Diego. We're located out of San Diego. We're based out of San Diego.
Thank you. So possibly Amanda could take that?
I just want them to look at this.
Oh, it's a video.
Yes. And just hit the play button if they can. Are you allowed to look at it, pass it along between yourselves, or is that breaking the rules?
I don't think it's, how long is this video?
It's, you don't have to see, you can just pass it. It's a 5-minute video. It's just enough for you guys to pass between yourselves and just look. It just shows you
So
what
just
we're all
a minute
about.
apiece. That's it. That's all you get, Jerry.
Not even
1
that.
minute.
Just get an idea. It just gives you an idea of what we're all about. Just hit the play button. There's sound on there.
If I may interject, Vice Chair and Commissioners.
You may want to stop that, Jerry. The lawyer's speaking.
Okay.
If something's given to the planning commissioners, the public has a right to see it as well. So
I'm fine
unless
with
there
that.
was a hookup to, one of the TVs or something like that, that'd be a lot easier to provide everyone the ability to take a look at that.
That's fine. Thanks anyway. Yes, I do, but yeah, that's, if you can't see that, that's fine. I can explain it. But we started Camp Run about 8 years ago in San Diego. The concept was to be more, not like a dog kennel, but a dog Disneyland. And I know that's not in the municipal code. We can't get it rewritten, but we are more like a dog Disneyland. We are a cage-free facility, and the video would have shown that dogs are free to run out in a synthetic grass yard. And this would be, all our camps are like this. We have 7 locations in San Diego, 1 in Los Angeles. We're trying to expand north into Orange County, and specifically Irvine. And our dogs are never put in a cage. The difference between us and other facilities, the more traditional kennels, is that our dogs are never in a cage. The boarding is the dogs are brought inside. There's a human that sleeps with the dogs all night. They're never left alone, never put in a cage. We do have kennels for feeding them because dogs get weird around their food. So we're not crazy, so we know dogs will be dogs. But the dogs are never left alone. They're always occupied. The video would have shown you that they mill around. They do a little bit of play barking, but not much at all. They're relatively quiet. In the video, we had 60 dogs there. I taped this yesterday. Dogs are usually just milling around, hanging out in the sun. We have a splash pond, a waterfall. It's very cool. And dogs usually spend all their time in there. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer for you. On the rain question, can I answer that for Farron? She's not open yet, so we can probably answer some of those questions. The dogs will all come inside. They have as much inside space at that facility as they have outside. The gate to the parking lot will be a solid gate. There will be no passing through it. There will be a lock on it that cannot be opened accidentally by a customer or from inside. So we never use our gates during business hours when there are dogs on the facilities. We have the same situation in Mission Hills. All our gates are bolted shut.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for, go ahead, Mark.
So they're not in a cage, they all sleep together, so to speak. Do they have little beds, or do they?
It's called pack boarding, and the reason it works is because those dogs that are going to stay the night, and once we explain this to the customers, they totally get it. They have to check in by noon. The reason is those dogs, we wear them out. They get to play all day, and then for 3 or 4 reasons. They get used to the facility, they're worn out, they know the staff, and they know the other dogs that they're with. Most of the dogs that come to our camp consider this their second home. We do this for the stress factor. We do this what's best for the dog. So it is called pack boarding. Yes, it's a big room, and imagine a bunch of beds laying in this room. We don't give them their own specific beds. They kind of do what they want. But we have a human that sleeps in a cot above the dogs, and it's just like what I don't know how many own dogs, but it's what your dogs do at night. You sit down and watch TV. You're the alpha. Your dog's watching you. When you sit and watch TV, we tell our staff, don't work. Sit and watch TV or play on your iPad. The dogs will do what you're doing eventually. They will all settle down. It works beautifully.
And then if 2 of them maybe don't get along, then you got the human there to kind of...
Exactly. We never leave them alone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Eric Strauss.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Eric Strauss. I reside in Coto de Caza. I am the president of Pacesetter Business Properties. We developed Lake Forest Business Park back in 1981, along with a majority of the rest of Aspen Street and Maryland Boulevard. We currently also own about 130,000 square feet of industrial space and 800 storage units on Aspen Street. Secondly, I also own America West Properties. We're one of your tenants in Lake Forest. We rent 5,000 square feet across the street. We're one of the largest third-party commercial property management companies in Orange County. We've owned that company since 1996. In review of the proposed use permit 1215-4861, I'd like to bring a couple comments to the Commissioner's attention that I felt were not addressed in the proposal by staff. Number one, by allowing for 32 dogs and 6 employees at the property, there will be approximately 76 daily trips created to go to the site. You've reduced parking at the site by 50% under this proposal. The site is located on a steep incline. There is no turnaround. It is a dead-end entrance with one proposed turnaround. Okay? If you've ever visited that area, and I encourage you to do so, the parking on-street parking is full by 7:30, 5 days a week. It is free parking. There are no stop signs. There are no crosswalks provided by the city, and Aspen Street is extremely wide as compared to most normal streets, and that would be proposed today. There are hazards that are associated with this use because of the parking situation that staff is proposing to decrease. This is a quasi-retail use. It is not an industrial use. The park was built under industrial guidelines with the County of Orange. Our parking is 2 per 1,000. We maintain that parking with our uses, and it works very well at the park as it has since 1981. Of our 9 buildings, 7 are wholesalers that provide large tax bases. They pay sales tax through their sales to the city. 6 of the 9 tenants are national tenants. They want to be there for the location of the buildings, for the cities, to be a part of Lake Forest, and for the proximity to the neighboring community. Putting in a use that severely impacts parking in my 30 years of experience will be very detrimental. My office is right across the street. The city currently doesn't have any approach distances. Where the curb cuts are to go in, you can pull right up to that curb and park to where that cut is. If you plan that project today, you'd have a setback from that parking area. That doesn't exist. You're going to have people crossing the street, and that's an unfair burden. The pressure is also going to be faced by my adjoining tenants and my adjoining businesses across the street. I'm going to be forced to potentially hire police, security, put up signs on my property, and if there's a trip and fall because someone is dragging their dog across the property, God forbid, then we have an insurance issue. That's an unfair burden to an adjoining property owner. I would hope staff would consider that and realize what we're saying. I also have 2 adjoining properties of 14,000 square feet which share common walls. Yes, they have roll-up doors. Yes, they have offices. They're entitled to open up their roll-up doors when their people are working inside. I also, as a commercial landlord, have to provide what's called quiet enjoyment in my leases to my tenants. They're allowed to operate their business and not be disturbed by other people. If they decide that they cannot work there because of a noise factor, there's a breach of contract. That's an intentional tort. I don't want to be held liable for that. And word gets around that you can't inhabit my buildings because there's noisy dogs or nuisances created. Well, yes, I understand that there is a nuisance ordinance, both with the county and with the city. If it happens, I lose value. I can't rent the space, and it goes vacant. We built successful projects in the city of Lake Forest, including thousands of houses. We maintain a great tenant base in your community. We maintain a great set of projects. We would appreciate your understanding and our concern that by reducing the parking and adding a noise factor could be very detrimental, not only to surrounding parcel owners, but to people that are using the streets for driving around. It's a 50-mile-an-hour street. Okay, there's no crosswalks. You're going to you have a potential for 76 trips per day that are not there now with no parking. I'd like you to be aware of it. I'd like you to consider it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't think there's questions at this time. Just don't go anywhere. How's that?
Oh, say it.
Yeah.
Michael Ross.
Hello, how you doing? I'm Michael Ross. I'm from San Diego. I'm one of the founders of Camp Runamut. Like Dennis was saying, we started about 8 years ago, and we have 7 locations in San Diego, and our neighbors love us. We have submitted a letter from our neighbor. National chains a hotel chain, a UFC fighting gym, or not a fighting gym, just a UFC gym. Our neighbors are fine with us. We don't make a lot of noise. We have had noise studies. We fall way below any crazy noise. Our original location in San Diego is literally within 150 feet of condos, and we don't get noise complaints. The neighbors actually thanked us for moving in because we made the site better, and they're too dog lovers. The dogs that come to us, let me explain. First of all, half the dogs that come to us are from rescues and shelters. People are making a difference in adopting these dogs, and we're allowing them to do that so the dogs don't have to stay at home by themselves all day long. We get to help with separation anxiety and other issues that may affect the dogs. All the dogs that come to us are temperament tested. They're up to date on all their vaccinations. Our software gives us a warning when they're within 45 days. We let the owners know, because sometimes the vets don't. So we make sure that the dogs have all their vaccinations and are very healthy. Then we do a temperament test on all the dogs. So we don't allow any aggressive dogs in. We do not have any breed restrictions. Each dog gets an individual temperament test. So we have Chihuahuas playing with Pit Bulls, playing with Great Danes, and they all get along very well. If the dog doesn't pass the temperament test, we would recommend training, and we can try and do the temperament test at a later date after the training has been completed. We want to help dogs do better and have better lives, and in conjunction, that gives people better lives too.
Thank you.
William Dodd.
My name's William Dodd, live in Laguna Niguel. I think the staff addressed, I'm the representative on the real estate for the brokerage for Camp Runamuck. I'd just like to address something that Mr. Strauss said. Staff has already commented on the parking, on that percent, but when he was talking about the noise complaints and hurting the businesses, I tried to put a Camp Runamuck into one of his buildings back in 2013. The use was accepted. We just didn't come down to agreement on rate based on an email dated July 29th, 2013. So I'm not sure the comment about it disrupting his tenants in this situation. I would have to ask why there's a difference between when he was accepting it back then to accepting it now. And once again, I think staff has gone over the parking, but I just wanted to make mention of that. Any questions?
Doesn't appear to be any questions at this time.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, okay. So I think I just heard you tell us that you had a prior arrangement, business arrangement in which you brought a similar tenant to an exact tenant to this exact building?
Different building on Remy Ridge.
Different building. Okay, so it wasn't the same building.
Similar
building.
nature, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm curious, how long is the lease?
Lease is 10 years.
I'm curious about the parking, and maybe, Amanda, you can answer this one. How many parking spaces did they lose? How many? It looks like, according to this information here, the business requires 8 parking stalls. But what's your take on the parking situation there? There seems to be some disagreement about how this is working.
So currently there is a fenced off area for the building that's already there. And they're actually pushing the fence back a little bit more and making a little bit of site modifications to accommodate the number of required stalls per city code. The city code has the requirement of 2 parking stalls for every 3 employees and 1 parking space for every 8 dogs. So they're actually pushing the fence back and allowing for additional parking stalls to be located at the end of the drive aisle.
So we've actually added parking in a sense.
Yeah, I believe currently, right now, there's technically 14 parking stalls, but some are located behind that fence, and they are proposing to have 8 parking stalls.
Okay. I guess I would ask the proposed tenant, what's the traffic pattern for people coming and going during the day? And how would this affect how do you propose this would affect the other tenants in that development?
We haven't had any other problems at any of the other locations. Customers are in and out in approximately 3 to 4 minutes. They literally come in the morning on their way to work, drop their dog off, they literally hand them over. We have everything computerized. When they're checking in for boarding, we have a boarding checklist that the parents do online, so it minimizes the time it takes to actually go over the instructions for the dog. When they pick up the dog, it's a pretty quick transaction. We get to know our customers pretty well as their dogs. So when we see a car pull into the parking lot, we know who it is and we start getting the dog ready to go. So we're pretty fast. Our Mission Hills location has 7 parking places for customers. We do 60 to 80 dogs per day. I will be honest, it gets tight at times, but it flows. It's never been a problem.
What's your busiest times of the day?
The morning is a little more spaced out because people go into work at different times. The later part of the day, we get pickups between 4 and 6:30 are the biggest times, but they're pretty spaced out.
So about how many customers would you say would be in your parking lot at the busiest time of the day?
At any one time, 4 to 5, 6 maybe.
So you wouldn't be occupying all the parking spaces that you have?
I'm not going to say that it wouldn't ever happen, but not on a regular basis, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other question?
No, thank you. Mr. Strauss, Donald Trump always gets to comment when somebody mentions his name, so in a debate, so I think you ought to come back. But just don't be Donald tonight.
No, no intention of that whatsoever. Thank you. Just to clarify something, as I understand it, there's 8 parking spaces total with an allotment for employees and an allotment for patrons. And if you read the city code properly, the Muni code, the goal of the code is to not take off-street parking and push it onto on-street parking. I think that's pretty clear as a statement in general. So I'd like you to consider that. I think those are a little confusing, but the way that this is designed is for the employees to be able to park there, leaving 2, maximum of 3, including a disabled spot, available for patrons.
Well, I guess we have to clarify if all 6 employees are going to be there at the same time, and my guess is they're not.
I'm just responding to the way that, okay, if there was 3 employees there, you'd have 4 spaces left over with a handicap.
Amanda? You have...
If there were 3 employees, they'd have 5 open parking stalls because there's 8 provided on site.
How can an industrial rated building be modified for retail use and the parking allotment be downgraded less than industrial? It makes no sense. You have a site that's on a hill, you're going to have traffic issues on a corner.
Well, my guess is most of their clients don't have a license to drive, is probably what they're going to tell you.
Fair enough.
But I think Jerry has a question.
To answer your question, if I can finish real quick, and I'll get out of here. The other building's across the street. It's 10,150 square feet. It has 22 parking spaces, and in no part of the proposal did I recall that we conceded parking. Okay, number 1. Number 2, we never got to the part of researching the code as to what the City of Lake Forest would and wouldn't allow. We never got to past the deal points of occurring on a rent. But to clarify it, it's a building on a corner. There's not 3 buildings adjacent to it. There's 1, which has been an automotive body shop, which is approved use in the code and in the CCRs for over 20 years. So we felt that the use would comply there only because the parking worked. We weren't conceding parking like this is. Questions?
I have a concern about that parking because you take one out because it's a handicap access parking, so we're really only dealing with 7 spots. And if we've got 2 of those spots, at least 2 of those spots that are taken by employees, so now we're down to an absolute maximum of 5 available, and I don't know that all 5 are going to be used. And I was curious about the comments that were made, and I appreciate Commissioner Ledden's asking the question about give me an example of how many are going to be there. What's your busiest time? The rotation going through, I can see how we could have a situation where we're backing up onto the street, people trying to get in to get their, drop their dog off or pick up their dog. But I don't know that that would be a repetitive and really a nuisance. And I share your viewpoint completely. I'm not comfortable yet with the parking scenario.
My main concern to stress to the council is that for business to succeed, people have to get to it. When people can't get to it, they're going to find another alternative so that they can get to the business. There's on-street parking that's very impacted here. I have a 40,000 square foot project directly across the street that I don't think I should have to police because I have paying tenants there that expect to pull in at 8 in the morning and find a place to park. And if someone's there for 3 or 4 minutes and it's inconvenience for my tenant who pays me rent, that's not right. And the city's creating a burden by that. And if you look at the city code, the municipal code clearly states that the commission and staff has the right to reduce parking by 15% for a specific use. However, it must be accompanied by a parking study. It's clear in the code that it says that. This hasn't occurred here.
Yeah. I agree with your comment too. Aspen is a very, it's used to cut across and avoid, the intersection is going down Lake Forest. And there is no, I've been in the city for almost 30 years. I've yet to see any kind of traffic enforcement on that street when I've driven it.
No,
and I drive it too fast. I admit.
It's a wide open, large street.
Yeah.
People can dart in and dart out from behind cars. When it gets to be daylight savings, I'm there. I'm at this intersection. I have 5,000 feet of employees. Mm-hmm. I know it's hard to pull out onto that street because of the on-street parking. Mm-hmm. Imagine it in October, November when it gets dark and that person's coming across the street. It's not going to be a fun thing for anybody. I'm not here to say that these people aren't great operators. I'm here to say that we're running businesses, we have long-time tenants, and we designed a park to function as a park with light industrial uses. You put in an adverse use, it really mixes things up. And I think that it really needs to be considered by staff that there can be some negative outcomes for business owners, property owners, city issues, traffic issues.
Appreciate your comments.
I had one more question, just as a matter of maybe information. Do your CCRs and your association there have any specific prohibition for this type of a business, or do you have any other type of restrictions in that area that would be difficult for this potential tenant to live with?
The CCRs were required by the County of Orange, much like you guys would require CCRs in today's day and age when you approve a project. And those CCRs are very clear as to what uses are approved. This is not listed as an approved use. The applicant, or the property owner, I should say, must apply for that use to be approved to the declarant. I'm the declarant. We own 9 of the 12 buildings.
Okay. So I take it the property owner's not done that yet?
We've had no contact whatsoever from Mr. Montrose, who owns the property. Not in writing, not in telephone, nothing. We've heard no interest from him, and he's literally 200 feet away from my office.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that question.
And the CCRs are recorded on his title.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
You bet. Anything else?
I think we're good for now. Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Okay. So let's bring it back up here. And does anybody have any more questions for Ms. Amanda?
What's your feeling about the parking, Amanda? I get the feeling you think it's okay. I mean, in light of what we've heard tonight, you still think it's okay?
Well, each use in the city requires different parking standards, and this use is meeting the city's parking requirements as stated in the code. So I do believe that based on the proposal that they're having 32 dogs and 6 employees and they meet the parking standards that are listed in the municipal code, that it's an adequate.
Question, where did the ratio for number of dogs, number of parking spaces, where did that originate from?
I think it's similar to the regular daycare standard as well. A regular daycare requires 1 space for every 8 children, so I would assume that it's kind of based off of that standard as well.
Is that where it came from?
We inherited many of the parking standards from the County of Orange when the city incorporated. And Amanda's correct, that's the same standard that we use for daycare uses for children, where we park the employees and, people, similar operating characteristics. People come, they drop off kids, they pick them up, the same kind of standards.
Thank you.
Could we get a clarification on the parking study and the comment that it's required from our Assistant City Attorney?
If I could, first...
Or Gail.
We have several methods in the code where alternative parking standards could apply, and one is to request a reduction with a parking study. You can get up to a 15% reduction. That's not required in this case. We have a daycare parking standard. They're meeting the city's code on that. For example, something like this standard could be used for someone has a very different type of car wash that doesn't, meet the code definition. Something has changed, and so they would want to provide a study that their use is significantly different, and they'd be asking for a reduction. Again, in this case, they're meeting the code requirement.
If we were to be looking at a daycare facility in this particular piece of property, would there be objection to that with regards to the parking, or would we have to be a little more, would we have to have an in and out? And I only ask that because we're comparing it to it here.
In terms of the number of parking stalls, no. A daycare with children in an industrial area would be a completely different situation altogether. We'd be looking at compatibility in the children and what types of industrial uses. So I don't think that the uses and how we would approve them or what issues they may have are not closely aligned, but the parking we feel is an appropriate parking standard for bringing in a child or a dog, dropping them off, picking them up at the end of the day, that the parking characteristic is similar.
Thank you, Gail.
I have a question of the applicant. How many employees would be there overnight? One. And during the day?
I'm sorry, possibly 2. If there was 32 dogs, there would probably be 2 people.
And during the day?
2 to 3, maybe 4 most. During crossover time. But in the middle of the day is when we have our crossover.
Yep.
Sorry.
We have shift changes during the middle of the day, which is the slowest time because people are already at work. So we kind of negate that.
Would you mind answering the questions from the beginning, because you're now on the microphone?
When we have shift, the employees come in.
I think the first one was how many employees were there overnight?
Oh, overnight. 1 to 2, depending on the number of dogs.
And how many employees typically?
That are on shift, 3 to 4. Now, there may be some crossover, as I was saying, that occurs during the middle of the day, and we do that intentionally during the middle of the day, because that is the slowest part where we don't have customers coming in and out. Our parking lots can be completely empty during the middle part of the day. For 6 hours, it can be nobody coming in and out. And then we have the block of time in the beginning and the block of time at the end when people are dropping off and picking up.
Assuming that those employees in the daytime use an automobile to get to work?
Some do. Some walk. Some take the bus. We have, in San Diego, we have the trolley system. We have employees that do both, or all.
So most likely you'll have to do some management of those spaces.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my concern, because if you have 4 employees there, that's 4 parking spaces, now you're down to 3. And that becomes a concern in my mind that, either the employees have to find an alternate place to park or something else has to happen, because it looks like even though you've met the city standard, there's still the potential to create a parking problem out there, depending on how you staff it at any particular time.
Yeah, well, we've tried to curtail that problem by having the shift changes when we do it during the middle of the day.
The shift changes would occur when you don't have clients coming in and out, is what?
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but,
And you're still going to have employees during the busy time of drop-off and the busy time of pickup. So looking at that, you might have a staff of 4 during those times, those busy times. You said 3 to 4. I'm going to assume that during that busiest time, you're going to have the maximum number of employees there to facilitate the, getting the people in and getting the people out.
Yes.
Because, when you take your pet in, you don't want to be standing in line because, your coffee's getting cold and you're late going to work. Right? And on the way back, the pizza's now getting cold and your kids are waiting for you to get home. But, all of that aside, so if you got 4 employees between the hours of, say, is it 6:30 to 8:30, 7 to 9, or what are you looking at?
Well, our San Diego locations and what's proposed here will be opening at 6:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, so the busy times in the morning, the busiest hours would be?
Between 7 and 9:30.
7 and 9:30. And the afternoon then, the busiest hours?
4 to 6:30.
So 4 to 6:30. So it would be safe to say that you will have at least 4 employees during those times? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm asking a question.
Yes.
Okay. Does that help kind of give us some reference?
Well, yeah, I think, because part of it depends on what the rest of the traffic flow is in that industrial park and how that relates to what their schedule is and when people are coming and going. That's the part I'm not totally clear on yet.
Yeah, I mean, I get Mr. Strauss's comments on that because his tenants be doing very similar traffic patterns. So, I mean, I get what what the point is.
Our neighbor in our original location in San Diego, Mission Hills, is a car dealership. And to be very honest, they don't have any customer parking. I don't know how they got through San Diego with this. But they have no customer parking, and they only use street parking. So we don't use any street parking because we can't. It's not there.
So we're going to ask our Assistant City Attorney for a comment here, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just wanted to chime in and point out a section of the Lake Forest Municipal Code 9.168. We've been having a pretty robust discussion on parking, and I wanted to point out that the code requirements are minimum requirements, and this particular section actually allows the decision maker here, the Planning Commission, to require additional parking spots if that is in the Planning Commission's discretion to meet the intent of the code, which is to allow a project to adequately meet, the practical parking, reality of a project. So I just want to point that out, that you do have that in your discretion.
So given that, if we were to look at additional parking, what then happens? It goes back to the drawing board?
Right. I believe that the direction would be to provide staff, direction to work with the applicant to see if another spot or how many additional spots may be needed for this project, and that could come back to the Planning Commission at a later time.
Tom, you got your finger on the button.
I think we've got to do something like that because I'm really not comfortable with this parking situation. I think it meets the standard, but on the other hand, I'm not sure it meets the reality of the situation. So I would tend to support something like that if we could figure out how to structure it.
Do we then decide, let's see if we can add 4 more spaces, or 2, or 5, or 10, or how does
I think what we do is we send that back and let the staff look at that, and they come back with a recommendation of how many more spaces we would add, and that would be, if it was my choice right now, that's what I would suggest that we do.
If I could add just something, we might want to look at a parking study. They run other facilities, and so it would be possible to gather real data instead of just, attempting to decide how many parking stalls would be needed. So they could provide us with information, from their existing facilities to help us make a more learned decision on how many parking spaces would be adequate.
So the best thing for us to do is to eventually make a motion to request a parking study and defer this until that's done. Is that kind of what we're saying here?
You didn't say a parking study, did you, Gail? You said looking at their...
No, she said parking
No, I
study.
said parking
looking
study
at their
because
other parking spaces.
No, they have facilities that are run in the same manner. They operate a number of facilities, and this is how we would treat any other use, is that you look at the facility Monday through Friday, you count the parking stalls, every half hour, every time change possible, and we see what is the maximum parking demand, how many employees, how many people dropped off, and there's an adjustment made for the number of dogs. This facility is proposing 32 dogs, and so then we'll have some data that we can look at that would inform the number of parking stalls that would be adequate for a use that's run in this manner.
So would you like a motion that would include a parking study and then like a leeway on additional parking so that you could kind of figure it all out once you're outside our office?
I think the parking study, we figure most of that out for us. I think that would work it out.
Okay.
That'd be my thought. I'd leave it to the parking study to determine that, right? You get what we're saying?
Mark?
Well, and then also to see how many, is it possible that we could add a couple more spots, or how many, I don't know if that parking study would have that information as far as how many more spots could we, conceivably add to that. And I have one question for you guys. Now, the maximum dogs is 32. Is generally speaking, that's how many dogs you'll have every day, or is it most of the, that's a maximum, but most of the time it may be 20 or 15, or is there a, okay, so generally out of 365 days a year, how many days do you have 32 dogs? I mean, is there a, I'm just...
Our busiest time is during the holiday season, obviously, for boarding purposes. But during those times, people are away, so they're not coming in and out the drop-off. But that would be when we'd have 32. Normally, we're maybe at 75% capacity.
Okay.
We've already got an existing business like this that's right on Dimension. I don't know if that would be a good one to throw into the mix on that. The other thing is I've looked at this overview. On McWhorter, there's cars parked. On Shannon Circle, there's cars parked. But I don't see any parking on Remy Ridge. Do we know if Remy Ridge is a restricted parking street?
It's not a restricted parking street. When I visited the site, there were cars parked along Remy Ridge.
Okay, so it is possible then that the spaces that are on site, employees would not use any of those spaces. They would then park on the street as opposed to that, and preferably away where if parking spaces were full, people that wanted to could definitely park on Remy Ridge and walk their dogs in. Is that, if there's no parking restrictions, is that what we would understand?
If there are no restrictions, that could well happen. We have to, the code requires that the site itself have the number of spaces. So we can't lessen the number of spaces and say employees shall park on Remy Ridge, but that's a street. If I was out there in the morning and many of the street spaces were taken as well.
Right.
So that could be an option, yes.
I know that those street spaces fill up pretty quick just by the employees that work in those businesses. So that's kind of one of those things. It's a first come, first serve. But I appreciate the comment that was made that having either employees or potential customers wanting to park across the street if there isn't any, and walk across Aspen to either retrieve or drop off their dogs is not a situation that I would like to see get set up here. Mainly because the the speeds on Aspen are I don't care what they post, it's not enforced.
Sorry, one quick comment.
One quick one. You were asking if we had more parking. The way the parking works on there, the way the yard is, we can go deeper, and that's how we were getting the parking. So if that needed to happen, we could actually just move the fence and gain the parking. So it's not something that we have to go down to the street. The parking's there. We just lose yard area.
We don't have to go two-level parking for a dog facility.
Now,
Okay,
we'll put the
good.
dogs under the level, so we'll keep the
Okay.
parking above.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I have a comment. As a business-friendly city, I would like us to give this applicant some guidance, and I'm going to call it a feel-good feeling about what the parking might be, and I kind of want to poll us to see if maybe one additional space might be adequate without going into a very complicated procedure, because if it's as little as one additional space, there could be some minor adjustments on the site plan, and it could produce an additional parking space.
But I think without the parking study, you don't know if one's adequate or not. That's my problem. I think without the parking study, I don't know that I want to venture down that road.
I agree with you on that, Tom. I think it would be good to get some additional data of like businesses type this and see where they're at. Not that we're going to come up with the same thing, because we're going to have a different business mix than they are in San Diego, but it'll be similar. So I think it'd be good. But the applicants already said that they could move that fence back and they could create additional parking. And by our own code standards, this meets the code standards. I think, you and I don't have a comfort level with it yet. I'm just not quite there.
Well, and I would like for the applicant to be able to move into that location if it's possible, but also I have some sensitivity to the landlord and the homeowners and the association over there. They have a situation too that potentially becomes somewhat untenable. So I think somehow we need to try and balance the needs of both of those, and I think maybe the parking study will help us figure out if that's possible. I would make a motion to close the public hearing and bring it back up here.
So, are you indicating you want to go ahead and, go ahead.
If we're going to close the public hearing, we need a motion, right? So
I just made a motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand. What you're talking about is defer this back to staff to gain the parking data. I'm going to use parking data rather than parking study, because parking study is a more formal term, and I don't think we're actually asking the applicant to go ahead and spend the money for a study. I think we're asking to collect parking data of similar type businesses so that we can analyze that, have staff analyze that. Is that what I'm understanding your motion is?
Yes, by a traffic engineer.
Well, you can't answer what Tom's motion is, right?
Well, I'm just curious, would that work from the staff perspective?
Yes, as you will recall, we also, in the case of the our local, was it a theater, a small theater building,
right.
We don't require these types of studies to be done by a licensed traffic engineer. There are some things where you're monitoring 5 or 6 spaces, and you could say at 9:15 6 were filled, at 9:20 5 were filled. So I do understand the difference there between collecting parking data of similar uses. The assistant city attorney and I had some guidance on perhaps where your motion would want to be, and we'd want you to continue the public hearing, and we'd come back and re-advertise it, direct staff to work with the applicant to verify parking demand using parking data collected from similar uses, and to review the potential to add spaces on site if warranted. That would be our suggestion as to what we're hearing kind of collectively.
I would make a motion to support staff's suggestion.
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a motion, a second, to continue the public hearing. Is there any further discussion up here? Hearing none, let's vote on that. So the motion carries 5-0, and I'd just like to thank everybody for all your comments, and the applicant. I know that this puts a burden on you, but I think it's hopefully going to be a good conclusion that will make everybody happy. So thank you very much. And I believe we have one last item tonight.
We do, and I'd like to introduce our Assistant City Attorney, who will have a staff presentation on this item this evening.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners, Vice Chair. This item proposed zoning code amendment 1015-4845. It's a proposed amendment to the sign ordinance. As background, in 2014, the city made pretty substantial changes to its sign ordinance, particularly to campaign signs. So one of the allowances in that new campaign sign ordinance was campaign signs were allowed to be on the public right-of-way with a deposit fee to the city. But in the middle of last year, 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case called Reed versus Town and Gilbert. In that case, a church actually sued the town, saying that the town couldn't differentiate between non-commercial signage. As you may know, non-commercial signage is the opposite of commercial signage. So it includes ideological signs, political signs, directional signs. It might include, save the whales, go north to get to the church, vote for Bernie Sanders for president, one of those type of signs.
We're going to have to give equal time now. Stop that.
Sorry,
Oh, maybe because I mentioned Donald, so we're good?
All right, we're good. Exactly. You did mention Donald Trump earlier. Okay, so the court actually agreed with the church and said, you're right, cities cannot look at the message and regulate the content of signage under the First Amendment. So it's kind of a landmark case in public signage in that, a lot of cities, almost every city, has sign codes that differentiates between non-commercial signs. They have signs, regulations that regulate religious signs to political signs to other type of non-commercial signs. All right. So when this was in front of the council last year, the council gave staff kind of a two-part direction. The first part of that direction, which we're discussing tonight, is go back to the sign ordinance and just repeal everything related to campaign signage so that it agrees and complies with the Reed case. And the second part of the direction, which we'll eventually get to once we get additional council direction, is to look at the sign code globally and make sure that the entire sign code is compliant with that Reed versus Town of Gilbert case. All right. So with that direction, what you have in front of you with the ordinance, the proposed zoning ordinance, is that wherever you see campaign signage, that was stricken out. There's no explicit reference to campaign signage any longer. But at the same time, we wanted to have in the sign code an opportunity for individuals to display campaign signs if they wanted to during an election period. But instead of calling that out as campaign signage, that was renamed in the table, 9.164110A, sub 8, as temporary non-commercial signage. So those new regulations say that 45 days before an election, temporary signage can be displayed. Not just, campaign signs, but again, temporary non-commercial signage. So any sign that you want can be displayed on private property 45 days before an election. The other thing to comply with case law is that private property owners can display one non-commercial sign all year that is 2 square feet. In their, on their private property. And that is based on case law saying that cities cannot outright ban non-commercial signage. They have to give some type of opportunity for property owners to display non-commercial signs. So again, this is just kind of the first step of what I call Gilbertizing the sign code, taking out those campaign signs. We will get additional direction from the council on how to holistically take a look at the entire sign code. And this is an action to recommend approving the zoning code amendment to the council. And with that, I will open up to questions if you have any for me.
Well, the Does anybody have questions for Art? Well, you would need to fill out a speaker card, and then, of course, we would love to hear from you. In fact, if you come up and make your comment now and then fill that out later, then we'll be very happy. But you remember, name, town.
3 minutes.
Exactly.
Thanks. My name is Bill LaFave. I live in Lake Forest. And in 2014, it was very obvious that our code had changed regarding political signs. And we created such visual pollution that it was actually embarrassing. On some intersections, one down at Bake and Toledo, I counted 32 signs on one corner. And this sign was placed in front of this sign, in front of this sign, just to block the other person's sign. The signs didn't tell us what the candidate stood for. They didn't tell us what the candidate was against. It just meant that the guy with the deepest pocket had the most signs. And I don't think that that benefited our community at all. The homeowner could still put those signs on his lawn, and that might tell me that John Jones, my neighbor, who I respect, feels strongly about so-and-so, but that's an awful lot more than the signs being placed on public property told me. I think that I don't know, if you tried to place a sign that said Chihuahua at Stud, I don't think that would be allowed. I think that'd have to be taken down. I think if you said, best dentist in town, call me, that would probably have to be taken down. So I don't know why the political signs would get a beneficial treatment over the non-political signs. And in many cases, the signs were placed on non-public property, like HOA property. Now, maybe that was an oversight, or maybe it was just being a little aggressive, but in many cases, the signs were placed where they shouldn't have been under any circumstance. So, in that light, I would ask this board this commission, to consider those things and try to eliminate those signs and the ridiculous sign pollution that they created and the circumstances around them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you want to make a quick comment? No, thank you. On that?
Sure. Yes, repealing the campaign signage no longer would allow those signs to be on public property. So Ordinance 260 is actually the ordinance that enacted the new campaign sign laws. That's the one that allowed campaign signs to be on public property. What we did by kind of striking that was bringing it back to where it was before, where these type of signs would only be on private property. And, again, it doesn't, this ordinance, this proposed ordinance does not just specifically regulate campaign signs. We can't do that anymore under the case law. It's now just non-commercial signage.
So, and maybe you don't know this, but regarding enforcement purposes, so do we, for instance, the retired senior volunteers that are driving around, if they see campaign signs or any sign on public property, do they then remove them? Is that kind of what the plan is, or do we know?
That would be a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
But
there would be theoretically some sort of enforcement way that we can remove the signs, or somebody could have them if they see that they're in violation of.
That's correct.
This. Okay.
I'd like to pursue the point made by the speaker. I'm unfamiliar. One of those Elect Joe signs, they seem to be kind of standard. About how wide are they? 30 inches, 24 inches? 2 by 2?
2 square feet.
2 square feet. All right. Now, I think. Pardon? Okay. I would like us to look at this idea of the visual pollution. We're not going to pick on our own city. I'll pick on the city of Irvine. You drive down Culver, you drive down University Drive, and it just looks like an absolute, I can't even find the words, of signs just piled up
all over the place, and I would like to see us, I understand it's the least expensive way for a candidate to make his or her candidacy known. So that's an important element. The other is that maybe we can consider some kind of limitation as to the number of it. So what I'm thinking is, if someone has a frontage of 200 lineal feet, how many signs can they have in that 200 lineal feet?
Commissioner De Almeida, this is that's actually a really good point, and our office has actually been already ahead of the game, in my opinion, in looking at the overall sign code to recommend some kind of practical new regulations for the city to comply with Gilbert. One of the things we were considering recommending to the council was, a limit on how many signs out there. And again, like during an election period, just so. But, again, that's in the council's discretion. We will end up getting direction back from the council on that. We don't know where that's going to go. But that's, we could also let the council know that we got those comments from the planning commission.
So could we clarify that what we're doing here with what you're proposing, we have in front of us right now, is basically taking away the sign law that we put into practice within the last year or so, and we're going back to square zero, and if then would go to city council, and then it'd be city council's job to give staff direction on where they want to, what they see with a sign regulation that complies with the new law.
That's correct. And
Okay.
once they give, staff direction, we would make a draft, and it would go to planning commission. So the planning commissioners would get to weigh in and have input on those type of regulations.
So maybe if we wanted to everybody say their two wishes, so that we then would be able to say, yeah, we're going back to square zero, but consider this. And then your first wish would be less sign pollution.
Yes, and I see a simple answer. One is we move ahead with the first proposal, and then as a part of that, when we come to the new politically correct definition of a campaign sign, we start to look at what is a reasonable amount of signs to be put on a piece of property, so that the property owner can exercise this right, candidates can exercise their rights, and we can have a manageable amount of pollution for the 45, 50-day period. I'd like to see us do that.
And I will note that, and I will also note that what was agendized was this particular zoning code amendment, and not a more robust discussion on what should go into the next iteration of that.
So you don't want to do wishes right now? Because you had said that you'd want to note it, but if you don't want to note it, then I'm good with not noting it now if it's premature.
I do believe that's correct.
All right, so what we're really looking for is a motion to approve going back to a year ago, and then setting it to city council, and then because they were elected by our residents, they will then direct staff on what they think should be done with this, and then it'll come back to us eventually, and then we can opine.
That's correct.
I think the vice chairperson is leading the witness.
And I think she can.
So what you're looking for is a motion to move this forward so that staff and the city council can then put together their more formal draft that we get to come back and have an at that.
That's correct.
Then I'll make that motion.
That's very clear that it will come back to us.
Yes, Commissioner.
Is that a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
And close the public hearing. Or was there one? Yes, there was. Yeah, there was. We had a speaker.
All right, so we opened, we closed, we're now going to vote. Okay, motion carries 5-0. So now, prepared remarks by our new director's comments.
I have no comments this evening.
City Attorney's comment. She commented more tonight than we've heard in a long time.
Thank you. No comment. No further comment.
No further comment. All right. Who has comments up here?
I just want to welcome Mark to the Planning Commission. It's great to have you here, and I really enjoy getting to know you.
Thank you. I enjoy being here
That's your comments, and you're done.
so far.
And I want to thank staff also for doing a really good job on their presentations tonight. I thought they were very well prepared and answered the questions well, especially with someone who had a little controversy, which was nice. So thank you for all your hard work. We really appreciate it.
Commissioner Dalmia, do you have comments tonight?
No, I think I've said what I wanted to say. I just want to staff, and those 383 pages takes a while to get through. But it's well done. Thank you.
I don't have any comments tonight, so
We'll let Mark go last.
we can let Mark go last. It's the first. He's the first and the last.
As long as he only has 2 minutes. Yeah, okay. Well, we do want to welcome you, Mark. It's great. And again, staff, Amanda, I think you did a really good job. And with regard to that, I'm looking forward to your continue working with them, because I think I think the project's a good project. So, and I'm sure that we'll get that back. Keep up the good work.
And again, thanks everybody, and look forward to working for you or with you and in the future. Thanks.
All right. With that, we will be adjourned. Thank you.